Welcome to this tutorial for my sweet and starry arrangement of the Christmas Carol Away in a Manger. In this tutorial, I would like to go over a couple potential trouble spots, give you some pointers for how to learn it, as well as give you some insight into my thinking as the arranger to help you as you perform this and make it your own interpretation of this classic Christmas Carol. So the first thing that stands out about this arrangement, and you probably noticed it already, is that it's in 4/4 rather than typically 3/4. So it normally goes 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But I, in switching it to 4/4, have given it this kind of rhythm, dum, dum, da, dum, dum, da, dum, da, which is normally a kind of dancey, rhythmic element, but played at this tempo and with this kind of accompanimental pattern in your right hand, it actually, in my opinion, gives it that kind of starry quality, that the twinkliness of the night sky kind of quality. It's like the stars are dancing amongst each other. So that's something to take notice of. I think the first potential hurdle you're going to run into as you play this comes right on the first page, and right when the melody enters, they're at measure 9, pick up to measure 9. And that is getting the melody to stand out. Now, normally, a pianist, if you were trained like I was, you were taught if the dynamic, for example, is a piano here, soft as it is, you would play your accompanimental parts soft to give it that soft quality. But then you would play the melody on top of that a little bit louder, maybe at a mezzo forte volume. I'm actually going to suggest, and I aimed for this as I was working on it myself, especially because the melody kind of sits in the middle of the bass notes and the right hand accompaniment, is that you try to make your right hand more like a pianissimo. So you actually lower the volume of the accompaniment and try to keep the melody itself at a piano dynamic. And that takes some practice. To get that figure to be a pianissimo, super quiet, so that it's having been in the foreground in the intro, but now stepping back to the background as the melody enters is a challenge. And if you're not used to it, it does take some practice. The best thing I can do to help you conquer that, if you're struggling with it, is to keep your you never want to build up tension in your hand, but you do want to engage the muscles the muscles in your fingers, and so as you play that, so that you kind of maintain a degree of rigidity to your fingers. So you can see the little movements in my hand. My hand is always engaged. There's a rigidity to the fingers. I'm not tense, but my muscles are, they're engaged. I'm trying to think of the word. They're flexing. So that's the best way I know how to maintain energy to the notes, but not overplay them in volume. And then your left hand melody will just come out right on top of that. The next challenge that comes up here at the end of the first page, right into the first measure of the second page, and then throughout, is fingering. Some of these movements are kind of tricky. There's a lot of movement, and there's a lot of inner working, and there's a lot of weaving in and out, and melodies kind of standing on top of one another and complementing one another. And I'm just turning the pages to find some more examples. So here, as soon as the melody comes in at measure 33 for your verse 2, it really does kind of get tricky. And so I put fingerings in there to help you tackle those. And you let me get closer here. You can see the fingerings. As always with fingerings, they are subjective. And I'll even say for myself, these are the fingerings that I kind of landed on. But even if I were to play this again right now, I'd probably do slightly different fingerings. So view the fingerings as a starting point, as something helpful. But if your fingers are different, if your technique is different, if the size of your hands is different, then different fingering might work better for you, especially when you have these parallel thirds. And I think there's some of these like parallel sixths and things like that. You may definitely find that different fingering works for you. There's quite a stretch here at measure 55. 1, 2, 4 fingering. That's very comfortable for me, but that may be totally out of bounds for you, and that's totally fine. You work out a fingering that works best for you. Oh, and then really there's only one other thing I wanted to say, and that is that at the hinge points, and by that I mean the end of the intro going into the first entrance of the melody, and then the second at measure 16, there's kind of like in the middle of the verse. Then at measure 24, going into an interlude before you go into to verse 2 at measure 33. Like some of those like transition points, or I call them hinge points. Feel free to ebb and flow the tempo. Make this a slightly rubato tempo marking here at the beginning. Don't feel that it needs to stay perfectly steady and rigid. If the idea here is that this is a sparkly, twinkly, starry night kind of arrangement, that the twinkles in the night sky are not perfectly in rhythm, and so your performance of this arrangement also doesn't need to be perfectly in time, as if a metronome were going off in your head. Let it ebb and flow as you feel is natural, and I think that about does it. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy this arrangement. I hope it's meaningful to you, and I hope that it's a blessing for those for whom you play it.